Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Here's some examples. Last time I had some pictures up, postcards, and I also had a book where the pictures were huge, made the puffin look much bigger than he really was. Well, these postcards make the paintings look much smaller than they really are. And in doing so, I realized it's probably impossible to make them out. I put them up. This one was Monet, and it was called Landscape with Orchard and Figures, 1879. Well, 1876, Alfred Sisley did a painting, and it was called Women Laundering. There, I can make out about 7 people here. They've taken their laundry down to wash in the brook, in the stream, and that's about 150 years ago. Things changed. There's the people out working in the orchard, and things have changed. Now, I said that I wanted to spend a little more time just talking about this book. It seems it's autobiographical, and it's talking about a time that's, at least in my mind, things have changed probably somewhat. Maybe not as much as I think they maybe have changed. 20 Years A-Growin' by Maurice O'Sullivan. Now, first thing that I noticed when I opened the book is it's translated. It doesn't tell me that on the cover. Translated from the original Irish by Moya Llewellyn Davies and George Thompson. That's Thomson. Now, I'm going to read parts of this, and there's going to be troubles with some of the pronunciation, and I just apologize in advance. I'll do the best I can, but it's a shot in the dark, so to speak. So, book 1933 was published. That whole thing about the language reminded me of the Irish pirate queen, Grandia, who went to London to visit with Queen Elizabeth I, and Queen Elizabeth couldn't speak Irish, and Grandia couldn't speak English. So they found they could speak Latin enough, each of them, that they could understand and have a conversation. Quite a meeting. Thank goodness for these translators that have put this book, made it available, and still managed to keep the flavor of Maurice's autobiography of his early years. My first journey home. I remember a day in July in the year 1911. I wasn't long in school. I'd gone to a boarding place when a lad came in and spoke to the mistress, saying I was wanted by someone in the hall. On going out, whom did I see but my father, my uncle, and my 2 aunts. My Aunt ran toward me, and without saying a word, she took me in her arms and kissed me. My other aunt did the same. Well, they've come to take him back home, and he's going to be enrolled in the local school there. So in that school, he meets almost like the first day, a fellow named Tomas, who has a little struggle with math. So he's quite good in math, and he helps Tomas, and they become good friends. Now, before school opens, and he's at the school, he's just reacquainting himself with where he lives and the island and the people, and he goes for walks with his grandfather, and grandfather talks about the days when they wouldn't wear socks and shoes. They'd be barefoot all the time, and they wouldn't have a drop of tea. There wasn't one, not even the thought of having one back then. What you should have: Indian meal, oatmeal, potatoes, and fine fish from the sea. And they left their mark on the people. Little sickness or infection came to them. And he sort of goes on to think that the young people are soft. They have shoes just before they can even crawl, hardly. And so there's a day where Tomas and Maurice have made sort of an appointment to go and explore around. And they're thinking of gathering seagull eggs. And maybe they get a rabbit or two. And so they each have a dog with them. And so this chapter is from something called A Day's Hunting. And they get to where they want to look for eggs, especially Tomas. And it's a steep ravine, gully. And Jeepers Maurice says, I get dizzy just looking down there. So off goes Tomas. I could see Tomas still climbing down like a goat, without a trouble or care in the world. There was a great din in the gully. It's shining white with the droppings of seabirds, kittiwakes, herring gulls, puffins, guillemots, sea ravens, razorbacks, blackback gulls, and petrels, each with its own cry and its own nest built in the rock. I was looking at them and watching them until before long the dizziness left me, and while I thought what a hard life they had, foraging for food, as I was thinking, I saw a puffin making straight towards me in from the sea. It was quite near me now, and I saw that it had a bundle of sprats across its mouth. It came nearer and nearer until it was only 5 yards away. It was going to land on a rock, I thought. So I lay down in the long heather which was growing around. It came in fearlessly, and I made a grab at it with my hand, but it was gone into a burrow beside me. Well, it's feeding its young, and I began digging it out, and it was easy enough, for I had only to thrust my hand back and lift up the ledge of a stone. There was a fine fat whippet in it, a young puffin. I thrust my hand in to draw it out, but if so, I wished I had not, for it gave me a savage bite with its beak. So, now, another outing. This time they're going to go and sail across to a place. As we were making hill ahead, we got a nice breeze of wind in from the east. When we were far enough out, we drew up the sail, and out she moved swiftly. We were very comfortable, stretched out at our ease, and Michael telling us the story of Robinson Crusoe. We listened intently, and so we were shortening the journey little by little. "I suppose we're not halfway yet, Patrick," said I. "Oh, it's not far now. As soon as the Terach is visible beyond Blackhead. Go on, Michael." The Terach came into sight. We had a beautiful view as we crossed the Great Sound. I could see the little white building up in the Terach in the shining white road built through the black rocks from the sea all the way to the lighthouse. To the south were the two Schellings bathed in sunshine, the sea full of all kinds of seabirds, the waves murmuring around us, Inishvik Ilum and Inish Nobro growing bigger and bigger as we approached them, a group of sheep here and there on the top of the Inish Nobro, and others down in the steep, dizzy cliffs. How fearless they are, I thought, missing a good deal of the life of Robinson Crusoe on account of the beauty of the place and the depth of my thoughts. Before long, we saw the house on the Inish, its felt roof glittering in the sunshine, and the fine green fields around it. Further to the west, I saw a flock of goats, and I thought of Robinson and the goats he came across on an island just like this. Hundreds and thousands of birds were around, some of them flying through the air, others floating in the water, others settled on the rocks. I did not know what Michael was saying with all the thoughts that were running through my mind. Well, lots of things happened. There's the war, a shipwreck, and there's a passage from a chapter called Lobster Season. He's learning a little bit about the history of how they learned to catch lobsters. We told them how we found it and the wonder we were making in the pots, and we spent the day in their company till at the end they told us how to make them. And the people of the island are fishing lobster ever since. Now that's they is the English. And when we had the pots ready, we turned our faces west to Inishnabro, my father, my uncle, and myself. It was a great change of life for me, doing a man's hunting now. We laid a pot in every crack in the rocks along the north coast of Inishnabra. There was a wild background place, great dizzy cliffs above my head in which hundreds and thousands of birds were nesting. The guillemot, the whipping, common puffin, red puffin, black-tailed gull, petrel, sea raven, breeding together in the wild cliffs, seals in couples here and there sunning themselves on the rocks, each bird with its own cry, and the seals with their moan. A dead calm on the sea, but the little riplets moving in and making a glug glug up through the crevices of the rocks. I was sitting in the middle of the corral, taking heed of all around me, as happy as any mother's son. Now and then I saw a puffin coming in from the sea with a bundle of sprats across its bill. And I began to reflect on the life of the birds. What great wisdom they have to provide for their young. What was the difference between the nature of man, the nature of the birds, and of the seals? We were fishing lobster to nourish ourselves. The puffin providing for its chick, and the seal stretched out on the rock above after its labors. How strange is the way of the world. And the next passage I want to read is this. I'd spent a month on the sea, as happy as a prince, returning in the evening and setting out with a chirp of the sparrow. But one day, when we were out as usual, I noticed a difference. The fine view was not to be seen. There was no gladness in my heart. The birds were not singing, nor the seal sunning himself on the ledge. No heron, ring plover, nor sea pie was at the water's edge picking the limpets. No path of gold in the bay of Dingle, nor ripples glittering in the sunshine. No sultry haze on the bosom of the hills. No rabbits to be seen seated with ears cocked on the clumps of thrift. A gale was blowing from the south, and where the water lapped before, the waves were now hurling themselves with a roar against the rocks. Not a bird's cry to be heard, but all of them cowering in their holes, big clouds sweeping across the sky, ready to burst with the weight of the rain. The wind howling through the coves, the bright flowers above me twisted together in the storm, and no delight in my heart but cold and distress. I think the day means ill, said my father, and we'd better make for home. We rowed straight out of Skillet Head to get above the wind in order to raise the sail. I was in the middle, holding the jib sheets, jets of foam flying aboard, the sea heaving out from our bows, the waves thundering around us, a white path of foam behind, the pulley at the masthead whistling in the wind, and the rain falling heavily. Oh, Lord, how she darted through that sea. As each squall caught her, she heeled over so far that she shipped a great flood of foam. I was anything but easy in my mind now, the water leaping into the air and the storm blowing, ever and ever, till we came into the quay. It is little desire I had to be telling my grandfather of the beauty of the place that night. Well, Miss Shane, you have had your first day of the struggle of the world. I think, Dado, there's nothing so bad as fishing. You may be sure of it, my bright love. Well, there's the beauties, the days of beauty and the fine days, but there's also the storms and the harsh days, the risking of one's life. So there's a fishing story there. But there's many other things in there. There's the First World War, there's a shipwreck, there's a first love, things like that. It's a great account. I think people would enjoy it. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.